Hello, Saints. We've been studying Ephesians in our Sabbath School quarterly, and it's really quite a book. And so we're going to talk a little bit about it here, just in case there are some things you may have missed during the study. In chapter 2, in the second part there, verses 11 to 22, we're reading about the Gentiles and how it was that the Gentiles had come in. And what I want us to think about was that this was not just an afterthought, as Paul goes on in chapter 3. This was something that was a mystery for many years about the Gentiles coming in. This was part of God's plan all along. This wasn't a last minute ditch effort. And what I want us to think about is how this progressed. Why? Why was it that this wasn't all designed from the beginning? That it would be later when the Gentiles would come in. Those who were far off, were without God. What we need to do is see the whole Bible story that Paul is now bringing to its fruition. We go back to Genesis 11. Genesis 11 is a very important chapter in the Bible. It divides us between the antediluvian and the postdiluvian eras, the time after the flood. And in chapter 11 of Genesis, we see that all the nations of the earth have gathered together to build this great city and this great tower, the Tower of Babel, the gate of God, and that they were going to make a name for themselves. We see that even after the flood and after everything God had done, human beings are still at it, all self-centered, seeking their own glory and not the glory of God. And so God now, seeing that the whole world has gathered together to make a name for themselves, have not put God's name into the earth. And in so doing, God now needs a nation so he can put his name in the earth and do what his will had been all along. And so we see at the end of chapter 11 where he begins to call Abram, who would later become Abraham. This is the beginning where God starts out to build a nation. And this nation was to become that city on the hill, that picture to the world of who God was and what he was doing. He wasn't calling a nation to be the crucible of the saved, and this is the only people. I saw a movie one time, and you know how they take literary license in these movies on religion. And a Gentile was fighting a Jew, and the Gentile was asking the question of why God favored the Jews over the Gentiles. The Jews' response simply was, because God loved us more. Well, we know that's not the case. We see that in the Old Testament when Moses is going to God to pray for the people that God wants to destroy. They're in the wilderness. And he says, take me out of your book of life and preserve them. What it was is God later tells them there in the wilderness that if it weren't for the covenant he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he would not be with them. That he is only keeping the covenant because of the promise he made to their forefathers. So Israel wasn't God's people because they were good people. They were his covenant people because God had made the covenant. And it's through them that he will establish his name in the earth. Oh, he says later that he loves them because God does. But he wasn't doing it for them because they had anything worthy in which to attach that to. And over the years, they were to be that picture of God to the whole world who did not have him. So that when Messiah came, when Jesus died upon the cross, he would then take down that dividing wall that separates Jew from Gentile and bring the Gentile into one community, one body, where the two, Jew and Gentile, now become one humanity, where God's purpose can be fulfilled. That was his ultimate purpose. Not to diss the Jews, not to throw them away, but to unite them with the rest of the world as one people, with one God, as God prepares to take back the earth. Blessings.